I'd like to call this meeting to order, January 15th. I think the latest day in the month we've ever met. And we have a full complement of Historic Preservation Board members. So Diane, if you could call the roll.
Chris Cabezas.
Here.
John Miller.
Here.
Peter Dwyer.
Here.
Carol Perez.
Here.
Vlad Dumitrescu.
Here.
Ezra Craig.
Here.
Jim Chard.
Here. So I assume everybody has looked at the agenda. Can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Chris Cabezas.
Yes.
John Miller.
Yes.
Peter Dwyer.
Yes.
Carol Perez.
Yes.
Vlad Dumitrescu.
Yes.
Ezra Craig.
Yes.
Jim Chard.
Yes. And we have no minutes to approve, so I think we move on to swearing in of the public.
If anybody plans to speak, if you just go ahead and stand up and Diane will swear you in.
Please raise your right hand. By the authority vested in me, the notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So this is the opportunity for anybody who wishes to speak on something that is not on the agenda. And we might encourage George to do that before he leaves. But go ahead.
Just go ahead and continue without me, that's all I'd say.
Thank you for your approval.
Good afternoon, good evening. Roger Cope, representing the Preservation Trust here in Delray Beach. My office address is 701 Southeast 1st Street in the National Marina Historic District. Thank you guys for allowing the public to speak. I simply am before you tonight thanking you so far. The issue that I'd like to speak on is the designation of Veterans Park as a historic site. The Preservation Trust has proudly finalized the designation report. Earlier today, I emailed it to all of you. Hopefully you got it. I read it at your leisure. It is the formal report that we are going to present to the Mayor and City Council. And we've come before you once already. You've graciously given us support at that time. I simply want to say that please, if it comes back before you in any kind of iteration for any sort of fine tuning or detailing, please continue to support us. I will say this, we went before the DDA on Monday and we were given surprisingly unanimous support from the DDA. Unanimous, the entire board, and they had a full board that day too, I believe. It was just Monday. So 1924, the park was designated 100 years ago as of March of last year. And we wish we could have designated this and gotten under the 2024 calendar year, but we're going to make it happen in 2025. So the park is 100 years old, purchased by the city in March of 1924. And the simple goal is to preserve the park as a resource for the appreciation of the entire public. We don't pretend to think that each element within the park is historic necessarily. We've been asked that question a few times. But the park in its totality, as an environment, as a place of gathering, that's what we're trying to protect. Of course, within it is the rec center, which was designed by famous architect Kenneth Jacobson. Unfortunately, there was a band shell that was there at one point in time that was absolutely gorgeous, and it was demolished at some point in time. We'd like to maybe even consider bringing things back that maybe would make the park more of what it once was. But it served the city of Delray Beach very handsomely over the past 100 years. We even held the Christmas tree lighting there way before Old School Square held it. In fact, it was the Old School Square, gathering spot for the city until Old School Square came along. So you've got the shuffleboard courts, the lawn bowling courts, the gazebo, the fountain, the trellis. People go there to play bocce ball. It's just a great place for families and kids and people to gather. And so the trust, this is the main emphasis of the Preservation Trust. And we're on the half-yard line, pushing it forward. Just wanted you to know that. We're going to be part of a workshop coming up in February, I believe the 11th, if I'm not mistaken. We got that word yesterday from our city attorney's office, so that's a positive thing. And so please continue to support it as we push it forward. We're also not going to be innocent bystanders. We're going to reach out and be a source for seeking grant money from the state or from wherever it may be to help facilitate some of the improvements that may need to be made to the park. So thank you very much, and if there's anything that you can do to support in the future, keep doing that. Thank you.
May I ask a couple questions?
Yes, sir.
You say this is for the entire parcel and not specifically the man-made structures on it. So if the city would want to replace that rec center, is that a problem?
Not for me to decide, but I would think that it's because of the provenance of it. I can't imagine that it wouldn't be an asset so important that you wouldn't want to destroy it or demolish it. So I would think that of all the elements, that would be one that would be high on the list of being preserved. It's been modified over the years. It didn't have all, it's got a very steep, stable kind of shape to it. And it's a gathering, it's a rec center, it's a voting center. The city has different workshops there. There was one a month or so ago for the Palm Trail Homeowners Association that I attended. But the gables at one point were solid ended, and over the years they now have glass in them, and they're very lovely. And so we know that it's been modified at least once or twice. But there was a half a dozen other structures that used to be on the site that preceded it. And so I would hope that it would never be demolished. But those are maybe fine-tuned details that staff and others would have to weigh in on.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, just playing off your question, how old is the building that stands there now?
What's that?
How old is the building?
The
when was it built?
rec center?
Yeah, the rec center. Was that?
Carol, I wish I would have had that to memory, but
That's okay.
it's.
That's okay. Just curious.
So maybe the question is it older than 50 years old? I believe that it is.
Just curious.
So that may aid in the rationale of not allowing it to be demolished.
All right. I think we're up to quasi-judicial, right? Because we don't have any presentations.
Are there any other public comments? No? Okay.
Can't resist.
I walked all the way over here. George Long, 46 North Swenton Avenue. What he said about that being the old school square, entirely correct. That is where they used to have the, I think it was Memorial Day ceremonies and fire the rifles, and all these kids would run out there and grab the brass bullets and stuff like that. And the one thing I do remember is that the original shuffleboard court was on the west side, I think, running parallel to where the parking lot is. Yeah. And it was respected by the teenagers. Teenagers are not really the best people you want to have around if you leave all your equipment out, your shuffleboard, stuff like that. But we treated it with respect. Get them out there at night sometimes and messed around with it and stuff, and never vandalized or hurt anything, just kind of socialized there at the old shuffleboard court area. Thank you. Goodbye.
It was 1966, by the way.
Mr. Cope.
Carol, to answer your
It's
question,
close.
1967.
Oh,
Or did you say 66?
It says 66.
66?
Yeah.
So it's well over 50 years old.
Design
Does
one
that make
year,
it 50
built
years
the
old?
next,
Yes.
something like
All right, let's move along here.
Thank you.
Let me read the instructions here on quasi-judicial hearing. This hearing shall be conducted in accordance with the City of Delray Beach quasi-judicial rules. The applicant and the city shall be permitted to present their case. The public shall be allowed to speak for 3 minutes each, or a maximum of 6 minutes if the person represents an organization or a group that agrees not to speak. The City Commission Board and the members and staff on historic preservation and the applicant may be allowed to cross-examine a witness. The city or the applicant will be allowed to offer rebuttal testimony. The decision to approve or deny an application or appeal may not legally be made upon personal views as to whether a project is a good project or not, nor may a decision be based on the numbers of citizens who support or oppose a particular project. The law requires that all decisions must be made on the basis of whether the project meets the requirements of law, the comprehensive plan, and land development regulations. Having said that, should we have the first certificate of appropriateness?
For the record, Michelle Hewitt, planner, and I'd like to read into the record agenda item 7.a for 10 Southeast First Avenue, Certificate of Appropriateness and Amendment to the Master Sign Program 2025-026.
Are we ready to hear from the applicant?
If you could just ask if there are any ex parte communications, and then
That would be good,
the
yes.
applicant wants to come on up and
Ezra?
present.
Sorry?
Any ex parte conversations?
No.
Conversation, no, but I did drive by.
I also
Take a
drove by
look,
the
yeah.
site.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I drove by the site as well.
None.
John? Okay.
None.
Peter? None.
Well, I'm going to apologize ahead of time because this is my first meeting like this ever. So,
If you just start with your name and
Oh.
address.
thank you.
That
Thank
would
you.
be well.
Just guide me along.
We're here for you.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Peterhita on behalf of 10 Southeast First Avenue, Delray Orthodontics. I believe this is the second meeting in regards to the signage issue. So we sent in a presentation of all the alterations and the revised signage artwork and how it will look moving forward. I think Dr. Janet Stoz-Allen.
May I interrupt for
Yeah.
1 second?
Of course.
You can advance the slides, or we can help you do that.
Oh, yes, please do
Yeah.
that.
Would you mind, Michelle, assisting?
Oh, okay. All right, perfect. So Dr. Janice Stoz-Allen has been part of the Delray community for 35 years. She started off here with her first practice that she acquired, and in her later age, she decided to come back to Delray to open her what she wants to be her last practice and where she puts roots for the remainder of her life, essentially. We have worked in the practice. I think it opened 2022, I believe. It's up and coming. We're doing as much as we can to grow it. She has been working with the Chamber of Commerce and getting involved in a lot of community activities as much as she can. She wants to not only have a business here, but she wants her life to be a part of Delray Beach. Do you want me to pass the next slide? Okay, you can do it. Thank you. As you see, this is the signage timeline. We were not aware up until last year that the signage was not approved. We believed that the signage company had the permits needed. We found out later that that wasn't the case. If you want to put the next one. So this is currently what it looks like. We do agree that the sign wasn't installed properly. If you look at the pictures, I do believe it's because there's a light under there. So they weren't able to lower it. But now with the appropriate, there's an outlet there and power, but it doesn't light up. We don't know why it was installed. It was not a light up sign at all. It does, like you can see in the next, if you want to, yeah, there you go. It's crooked and it needs to be brought down, but there's a light under it. In the next slide, you can see that it doesn't light up. That's after dark, so the electricity doesn't work out there. We don't really know why it doesn't or why it was installed that way. We didn't ask for a light up sign. You can do the next one. So the goal today is to get it revised to what you want it to be and what we want to essentially accommodate the city for the sign to be appropriate. If you go to the next one, the signage on the windows is occupied by 13%. The allowed is 20%. The next one, sorry. They just included the local signage from the building. There's only 2 other signs outside, so you can see what those look like right now. And this is the revision. So we would take off the backing, cap any electrical outlets, and remove the black part of the sign so that it can be brought down lower. And we would take it off and mount it aligned to the building, not crooked or, So I feel with the backing gone, it would be easier to bring it down to where it needs to be. You can go to the next one. So as you see there, remove the backlighting, remove the electrical components and cap the outlet, and level line and mount the logo letters to the blue horizon. So we would take all the back and just mount the letters individually. And that's all.
Okay, if you want to take a seat, and the staff will give their presentation, and
Perfect.
then if they have any questions for you, they'll call you back.
Thank you for
Thank
inviting
you.
me.
No problem.
Okay. Once again, my name is Michelle Hewitt, planner, and this is a certificate of appropriateness and amendment to the master sign program for 10 Southeast First Avenue. This was continued from the December 4th meeting, so I'm just going to go over just some brief background again and just a quick synopsis. But this is within the locally and nationally designated Old School Square Historic District, and it is within the Old School Square Historic Arts District. It's a contributing building constructed in 1924 as a 2-story masonry vernacular style commercial building with a stucco interior. The building currently contains a mix of retail, office, and restaurant uses. So this is the facade of the subject property or address. This was prior to the sign being installed. And then this was the signage that was installed. This is a drawing placed on top of the building. And here it is in the field as it is today. So with the last board meeting, board members wanted to get or inquired for more information about some of the signage on the building, such as the Haagen-Dazs sign. So in February of 2019, a building permit was submitted for Haagen-Dazs signage. The submittal was administratively approved as the proposal was deemed consistent with the master sign program for the building on November 25th, 2019. 2 wall signs for Andre Dupree were administratively approved via the building permit process, also deemed consistent with the master sign program. The approved signs were each 18.25 square feet, non-illuminated, red and black wall signs. The signs were to be located on the north and east sides of the building. It is noted that processing the review of signage that is compliant with an approved master sign program is typically reviewed in association with the building permit. The process ensures streamlining and efficiency since the initial master sign program approval rests with the board. And so these images here are just showing the corner where the 2 Andre Dupree signs are that were approved in 2018, and then most recently, and then since then, there's been a new business that's come through that we haven't received any sign permits for yet. So the imagery is going over what's currently installed on the building, with the dimensions here, and then the wall signage that's currently exists, or the window signage, I'm sorry, that exists on the property today. Additional item that was requested was comparative information between what's permitted by the code and what ended up being installed on the building, where on the top is the code requirements, and at the bottom is what was installed. And then the staff report excerpt from previous analysis, where there is concern with the currently installed signage. As the design and integrated lighting of the sign doesn't comply with the Delaware Beach Historic Preservation Sign Guidelines. The request includes a box cabinet sign, which is discouraged, as they're more modern and may not convey the historic integrity of the structure. And here is another screenshot from the Secretary of the Interior standards for the sign as it's been installed, that consideration should be given to incorporate signage that emulates the materials and appropriate lighting style on the existing structure to maintain distinctive features and compatibility. And then here are the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation with the highlighted standards that were used to analyze the request, and the same here for the visual compatibility standards. And then a screenshot from the Delaware Beach Historic Preservation Design Guidelines for the sign as it's been installed today. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the public who wishes to comment on this item? Is there any rebuttal by the applicant to staff's report?
I don't know if that came up, but I was told that part of the problem as well with the windows was the Invisalign, that it couldn't be branded. We just want to make sure that everything's correct. So there, yeah. So Invisalign, I don't know if any of you have any experience with it. It's a form of treatment. So it's not a brand. It's either we use braces or Invisalign. That's just the form of treatment, and that is the treatment that Dr. Janice O'Zallen uses and prefers. So it's not an advertisement. It's just as if we put braces on the window. We don't do braces, but it's as if we put that. So we're not branding the window in any way. Additionally, for the lighting, I believe the Haagen-Dazs sign is a light up sign. I don't know if you're aware of that. Yeah, okay. And with the back of the sign being black, as you saw in the earlier slides, there was some black signage in the corner previous that was approved. That's all.
Thank you.
Staff, any response, any rebuttal?
So Michelle, can you pull up the applicant presentation? As far as the Invisalign and the window signs are concerned, we don't have any issue with the window signs. That's allowed per the code for them to have signs on the windows. I think the white sections that you're seeing are blinds, like a shade pulled down. Yeah. So we did not get this in advance of the meeting, this part of the presentation, the revision. And I think this is a result of them coming in the first time around. Right. So I need to understand, and if I don't know if I can inquire with the applicant. I have some questions as to what this is here. Is this a cat box sign? Is it backlit? I'm not sure. So Jennifer, would I be able to ask? Is that okay if I ask?
Yeah.
So this would be the exact same sign that we have up, just removing the backing, removing the box, the electrical box, and the whole. If you look at the earlier slides, the back of it, we would demount the letters, and we would just mount the letters and the sign individually versus having the back black part.
Okay.
Typically, I mean, you guys don't typically like to
Yeah.
design
from the dais.
Like on the day of, you like to see the stuff beforehand. So if you don't feel like you had enough information beforehand and you need to, you need to review it. You need.
So
you
normally
tell me.
we thank you. What Kelly is saying is normally we see this in advance so that we can include that revision in the staff report and provide any comments.
Did Morgan didn't send it to you beforehand?
Is your mic on?
That was in the presentation all the way in the bottom.
Yeah, this was in the, but we didn't get like a revision to, like you submitted like documents the first time about what was installed there. We didn't receive installed what you're proposing here as a revision. Yeah, right.
Okay.
So normally we would see it in advance of writing the staff report so that we could provide a review of it in the staff report. I think what we saw was in the presentation that you submitted for tonight. So we didn't see this. I really hate to delay another month for this applicant, but with that said, the sign is up, right? So there's no, I think, harm, but I would like an opportunity to review it so that I can understand if there is any potential for lighting, and we don't expect you not to light signs, but we haven't actually reviewed this.
Yeah, of course.
So,
But then you can also see like the measurements and you don't have like a specific.
this is going to measure smaller in square footage, where I think we were indicating 40 or 49 feet, square feet. So this is going to come up probably a little bit smaller, which would help you on the master sign program. So, yeah.
So that we don't have to bring them back in, can we designate this as an administrative decision?
No.
We cannot?
Master sign program has to come before, modification of the program has to come before you. Yeah.
I mean, I'm local, so I don't mind.
Yeah, and it's up.
Yeah.
It's not like you're missing out on customers. There's signs there.
Can we approve it with conditions?
I would really feel more comfortable having a chance to review it.
Okay.
Can we discuss and make some comments beforehand, or you would like to do that before we?
Honestly, I would recommend that you bring it back once staff has an opportunity to review it. I think typically we'd like them to actually be able to see it with measurements so that they're able to respond to your questions, they're able to respond to your comments.
The silver lining is the next meeting is only 2 weeks away. So it's not even a full month.
My simple question was: you're removing the light? Is that I can't read what that middle red says?
So that's the light. We're moving so right now it was installed a little bit higher because there's a light there. But removing the backing would just let us mount the letters individually, meaning that we can bring it lower into where the light is.
What will the light
What
remain?
is?
Yeah.
The light will remain.
Yeah, the light that's under that, like it's like a sconce light.
Okay.
Well, I think it's fair after we've heard this that if the board has any comments, I know Carol had a lot of comments when it originally came before us, and that might guide you in your thinking.
Yeah.
I really think that the postponement should be recommended at this point. I think that when you guys are making comments, staff also wants to be able to be prepared to respond to you. I think it would be much more appropriate if you go ahead and postpone now if they don't feel like they're in a place that they could.
I can move. I move to continue with direction.
Or just move to postpone the item until the next available meeting.
Okay,
Second.
take the roll.
It was Carol and Chris.
Yeah.
Chris Campenzis.
Do we? Yes. She was saying something, but
What was that?
No, go ahead. I interrupted.
yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Peter Dwyer,
Yes.
Carol Perez,
Yes.
Vlad Dumitrescu,
Yes.
Ezra Craig,
Yes.
Jim Chard.
Yes.
To the applicant, we will set a meeting with you in the next 2 days if you're available, so
Okay.
we can look at it with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you to the board.
Okay, next is B, 2025-083. Any ex parte? Carol?
Yes, I'm going to step down on this because I was their landscape architect. So.
Thank you.
Question. This is nothing to do with landscape architecture. It's with the building itself. Does Carol really have to step down?
I mean, I think, first of all, she's made her decision thinking that it is a conflict. And then also, I think, given that if there's changes to the building, maybe that might affect, what changes are going to be made on the landscape architect.
Okay.
I think it's probably the best decision for her to go ahead and conflict out. And she's probably analyzed it herself a bit as well, so.
Vlad? Ex parte?
No.
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 None.
No.
So proceed, although Diane has stepped out.
Read it into the record anyway. Okay.
I think so.
Okay. I'm going to read into the record agenda item 7B, 310 Northeast First Avenue, certificate of appropriateness, file number 2025-083. We have the property owners here to present their project. Keyboard in here. You can flip between the slides like this. And then here you can just and you just hold down the circle here.
With that. Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening. Joe Wagman, here with my wife Susan. 235 Northeast 1st Street, Unit 309. So we've been at on 235 Northeast 1st Street for about 10 years, and 3 years ago we bought 310 Northeast 1st Avenue. So this is how it looked when we bought it. It's a really 1940 vintage classic Bankers Row cottage. And if you notice, because it's sort of right in here, in fact, I think it's the third bay, that's where a new window was going in as part of the project, and that's the window we'll be talking to tonight. So just to try and kind of orient you to the nature of this. So, of course, this was a carport, and we were converting the front into a storage area, and behind that is a laundry room. And then in the front will be a carriage door to try and maintain some of the sort of transportation characteristic of the former carport. So I apologize, my IT skills are not the best. So this floor plan is a little distorted, not quite proportionate, but I just wanted to show, so this is the plan for the renovation. We're renovating the cottage, which is only about 900 square feet, and adding an addition. And the laundry area is right here under the highlighting, and the window is right about where the pointer is, the window that we'll be talking about. So in the permit set, you can see the two sections to the left of the former carport, and then there's a window. That rendition was actually an error of, I think that one's 16 lights in the window. The size of it shown there is correct. It's 3.6 by 4.6, and they actually got it right in the detail that was in the permit set. They just didn't show the elevation correctly. But you can see it's denoted as a new fixed window. And fixed is the issue here tonight, because what happened was, and well, let me give you a little more background and get into how this happened. So here we have the construction drawings. Now you can see the window in issue has been correctly depicted on the elevation, as well as over here on the detail. And here's where the issue begins, because now it's shown as a slider. And I'll tell you how we got to that. But it is, there are a couple points I wanted to make here. One is, in this transition, we weren't trying to sneak it through or pull anything over. We just didn't realize that it was an issue. And it's the same size, it's the same location, it's the same number of lights, 12, as was intended on the first one, except for that 16 light error on the elevation. But now, instead of a fixed window, it's a slider. And here's what happened. So the permit drawings were May of 2023, and the construction drawings are April of 2024. And in that time, there are a whole bunch of design meetings, because there were many, many loose ends. And what happened is, in those meetings, we went from a fixed to an operable. And the reason we did it was, Susan said, hey, could we make it operable just so we get fresh air in the laundry area? And then, and I'll show you a picture of it, but because the window's behind a counter and above the counter, for her, and I don't know, this is probably wrong thing these days, but in our allocation of duties, she gets most of the laundry duty and I do other things. But for her to operate the window, we thought, well, let's make it a slider, because that way she's not trying to lean over a counter and push up a sash. So we made it a slider. That's where we made the mistake, is we didn't, she and I never connected the dots, because it's same size, same number of lights, same location. From our perspective, and I'll show you why we think that, it's not visible from the street. We just didn't realize it was an issue. Now, today, I get it. It's a slider in an old school square cottage, and so that's actually a board issue, because it's in a contributing building. I don't need to tell you that, but that's why we're here. It's a board issue, not a staff issue, although they generally have windows, but because it's contributing, it is a board issue. And we get that. So we did show the change on the construction drawings, and what happened in this part of the process, I'm a little less clear on, but I guess the builder submits product sheets specifics to the city. And somewhere in that process, it was flagged that, well, wait, this has changed from a fixed window to a sliding window, and then that information, I guess, is shared with you guys. And the problem for us came that, however that shook out, the timing was the window had already been bought and installed. And then way after the fact, and I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong, it's just the way it evolved. We found out after installation there's just an issue with this window. So again, just to help you sort of see what we're doing here, that's the window from the outside as installed. And then this is the window from the inside, see behind the counter and behind the countertop. And that's the look of it from the inside. So I went around just to be able to try and show you, so is this thing like stick out? I mean, if this was on the front of the house, yeah. So here's a view, a photo I took from the back of the neighbor's property. I didn't want to go on their property, but this is looking as close as I could get right at the window. They have a 6-foot fence. We just installed what's an 8-foot fence that goes right up. It stops before the window, but now there's an 8-foot fence there on the right. And then here's one from their driveway looking at the window, and it's completely another 6-foot fence and a lot of vegetation. That when I got onto their driveway, and again, that behind all that is the window. And then I said, okay, well, what's the most visible angle I can get on this? And if you see that black arrow, that's the window, and that's the most visibility I could get from the street on it. And actually, this morning it hit me that because they're not finished, they haven't put the screens on the windows. So at some point, that window will get a screen on it. And in terms of visibility, as you know, if you stand and just look at a window that's got a screen, you see right through it. But when you're at an angle and you look into a screen, you're catching metal, and it's just going to be another element that I don't think that anybody on the street, first you'd have to really look to see if there is a window there, and then if there's a screen on it, I mean, you can see how it looks. Then I thought, well, okay, part of the issue here is probably that this isn't really in the vernacular of cottages in Old School Square Historic District. And I was just curious, so are we plugging like a 70s, 80s thing into this house, and is that part of the issue? So I just Googled it and found this. Anderson has an interesting kind of historic portion of their website, and I apologize for the size of the print, and of course the top is my title, but if you go down to where it says details, so Anderson primed wood, I think they call it gliding, can't see that quite well. Windows were manufactured from 1940 to 1971. So, and then with the illustration. So my only point is, if I was building this cottage in 1940, I could have had a slider. Anderson was making them. So I thought that was relevant in terms of how inappropriate this is. So just to sum it up, we absolutely erred. I just never thought that, I just didn't realize, I'm still learning about how all this works in the historic district, but we didn't get that this, and I am a little irritated with our architect who we hired because they're used to the district, that they didn't pick up that what we were doing here needs a permission. But there was no intent to bypass the process. We showed it in the CDs. It would not that I get that this is probably not relevant to decision, but it's going to be really expensive to take that out, put a new one in. Our problem. It's, in my view, it's not visible from the street. I mean, you can't look at our house and see that window other than that really askew angle on it. It is the same size and number of lights as the fixed one, very much in appearance. In fact, unless Susan had that window, well, or me, had that window open, even standing right in front of it, you're not going to be able to tell. I don't know. I guess if you really know windows, you could say, well, that's a slider, not fixed. But and it was available in the 40s. And if it's all, I don't know if it's relevant at all, but we're not, like, we didn't go in and replace an old sash with a aluminum slider. There was no window there at all. So it's not replacing an old one with a new one. It was a new opening, if that's at all relevant. And that's it. I guess we're really asking forgiveness that we made an error, but we don't think that it has a significant impact.
Understood. Turn it to staff. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Once again, Michelle Hewitt, planner for 310 Northeast First Avenue, Certificate of Appropriateness 2025-083. Here we have an aerial with the subject property outlined in bright blue, a little hard to see, with Northeast 3rd Street to the south and Northeast 1st Avenue to the east, and there's an alley in the rear. some brief history. The property is located within the locally and nationally registered Old School Square Historic District. It contains a circa 1941 story Monroe traditional style structure that is classified as contributing within the district. On January 4th, 2023, the Historic Preservation Board approved a certificate of appropriateness and variance request for an addition and exterior modification to the existing contributing structure. So here on the screen is the front or east elevation of the structure. This is prior to improvements or the approved modifications. Again, the front or east elevation. So you can see the carport on the right there. And this is the front currently in construction, where you can see it was approved to be enclosed, which is where those white panels are. And then a closer image here. Here we have the rear or west elevation. The addition is proposed or has been approved on the back of this elevation here. Here is the side or north elevation. This is the side that the carport is located on, where the subject window is. And then here's the side, so south elevation. So here's the approved site plan. The main existing contributing structure highlighted in blue, and then the addition highlighted in red. And then in the back there's a garage, the darker red box, and then on the top there is a red outline of where the enclosed carport is and where the subject window is located. So this is on the top is the existing side elevation prior to the approval, and then at the bottom is the approved site or elevation of the north side. So again, blue is the original structure, and then the red is the approved addition, and on the bottom left corner of the elevation is where that subject window is, where the carport was enclosed. So on the left is the installed window, the horizontal roller window, and on the right is the approved elevation of that fixed window that went before the board. So here is an excerpt from the Secretary of the Interior, or from the staff report in regard to the Secretary of the Interior standards. There is concern with the installed horizontal roller window, as a style of window is considered a modern/recent appearance and wasn't typically regularly utilized on the historic structures within Delray Beach. Fundamentally, staff does not have an issue with the proposed window, and it's also on a non-primary elevation. The approved elevations were 18 light mutton pattern, but the proposed 12 light or installed 12 light mutton pattern can be considered appropriate. And the appearance of the horizontal roller window resembles the appearance of a fixed window when unused. It is also important to note that the location of the window is on the newly enclosed carport. And then here are the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, with the subject standards utilized to analyze the request highlighted in yellow, and as well for the visual compatibility standards. And that concludes my presentation.
Sir, any rebuttal?
If we could go to public comment first.
Thank you, Kelly.
No problem.
Anybody here for public comment? No, sir. Any rebuttal from what staff said?
I don't think so, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
And staff? No rebuttal?
None from staff.
Okay, let's go to the board. Who'd like to start?
I'll start. I'm in support of it. I want to thank the applicant for his preparedness, his research, and his respect for the process. It's a small change, but I think in light of exactly what's happening to the rest of the building, we wouldn't even give this a second glance, you know, with the overall project. So I'm in support of it.
I have no problem with this. I'm in support.
Peter?
Yes, I'm in support of it. I think that it is visually compatible. There's a photograph included in the package, and it looks like a nice example of a rolling window, better than some of the other ones I've seen around town. And I think it fits well, and thank you for coming forward.
I just kind of, from administrative point of view, there's a little conflict between the 3/2 and 3/, whatever that is, 2/3 and 3/3. I mean, the report shows one image and the photo shows another one. I'm just, for consistency, I'm just trying to.
Right. I think there were some issues in the difference between the permit submittal, what was submitted for approval, certified, and what we have. I thought we caught that with a site plan technical item. Didn't we have it at the very end? It would be part of the process that they would have to make sure all plan sets.
I know.
Right. We addressed it in the staff report, so we'll work with the applicant should you move forward.
Yeah, just because the illustration are conflicting a little.
Yes.
So that's all. Personally, I don't have a problem with it. Just as a general rule, were the original windows wood or metal?
In the house, you had wood windows, correct? Originally, before you even started the process?
I think I'd have to look again at the slide for the back of the house, but I believe in the front they had been replaced with hurricane-proof
Aluminum?
aluminum.
Yeah.
I'm not
Originally, they would have been wood in this house.
Oh yeah, originally.
But just for a matter of note, with our process and previously, you know, a previous board had said at staff level, we can approve a change from wood to aluminum. I think we've only seen an application for wood windows twice in the 8 years I've been here. They're so cost prohibitive that most people aren't coming forward with them.
I mean, there is also the alternative of the combination of the clad, wood
Yeah,
clad.
wood clad. We see that once, maybe we've seen that. They're just the aluminum framed. If somebody's coming in with an exact same window, we let it go straight to permit. We want to make it as easy as possible that they can come into compliance with their insurance company, and so aluminum is the gold standard that we're allowing, while wood would be platinum.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ezra?
Did agree with everybody's comments.
And I'd like to thank the applicant. That was a very good presentation and good logic.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, my IT skills are not the best.
Well, I think your language skills are pretty good.
No, good, thank you.
So I am in support of it. I think it's good. So can we have a motion?
So move.
I'll do it. Mr. Chair, I'd like to move approval of the Certificate of Appropriateness 2025-083 for the property located at 310 Northeast First Avenue, Old School Square Historic Historic District, by finding that the request and approval thereof is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the criteria set forth in land development regulations.
Second. Call the roll.
Wait a second.
Ezra did the second.
Thank you. Chris Capezet,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Peter Dwyer,
Yes.
Carol Perez stepped down, Vlad Dumitrescu,
Yes.
Ezra Craig,
Yes.
Jim Chard.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I just a little compelled to say thank you for the volunteer service. I think a lot of people must come in here and not really appreciate what it takes to do that, and it's good. We really do appreciate it. It's a lot of work.
We're here to help.
We're taking applications
All right.
for next year.
Thank you.
And we're here to help too. Anything that you need.
Yeah, I should talk to you about cleaning up that 16 versus 12.
Thank you.
All right. Michelle, do you wish to enter the next one into the record?
Yes. I'm entering file number 2025-236, Certificate of Appropriateness and Waiver for 236 North Dixie Boulevard.
Any ex parte?
No.
None.
No.
I need to ask the question, Kelly. The applicant is a very good friend of mine, and I think there could be questions as to my objectiveness given that, but I would like to say that I think I can make the decisions as we say here in the record, that it's the LDRs, the laws, and the comprehensive plan. But
Okay.
if you believe that I should step down, I would.
We briefly spoke about this before the meeting. Do you believe that there's a special private gain or loss, an economic benefit or harm that would inure to you if this application was approved or denied?
Okay.
Do you?
Yes, I can say that there is no financial reward that I get.
Okay, and then also for any relatives, business associate, or principal.
Do I want a yes or a no here? I mean, there is.
There's no special
there is no
private
special-
gain or loss. Okay, then yeah, you're welcome to go ahead on it. I mean,
Okay,
it's up
thank
to
you.
you. I mean, if you feel like you can be fair and impartial, and there's no special private gain or loss, then you're welcome
right.
to sit on the board.
Thank you. So, if we can have the applicant present.
Good evening. My name is Ann Gannon, and it's nice to see you, Vlad, in something other than your yoga clothes. I live at 236 North Dixie Boulevard, and have lived in this house since I don't even remember when. And maybe it's because I'm getting old, but it is a perfect example of mission architecture within Delida Park. And as many of you know, the history of Delida Park was created to actually try and save our neighborhood. And it certainly has done that. I bought my house for a small pittance, and it's now worth over $1 million. So the city had good intentions, and actually it really helped our neighborhood. Having a historic district so no one can tear down our houses also. And it was built in 1925 by Dorothy and James Lutzinger. The porch on the back was added, I think, in 1961, and this is being proposed to be removed to add the additional square footage to the house and the second floor. But this is, for me, it's a really special house, and I think we have some pictures in here that I will share with you. How do I get to that one? One more. This is kind of the outside of the house. And the special part of my house is the backyard. It's actually a native plant garden. There are no exotic trees or plants in my garden. And in the front yard, those are Florida wildflowers. And I intend to continue that in my yard, because I know that we're going to have to make some adjustments to one tree and one side of the house to change the walkway so that it becomes that the walkway is not there anymore, and we put something else in so that the rain can go through instead of stand on the street on the walkway. Do you want to explain the rest of it?
For the record, Kermit White, architect for the project with Principal Design. Address is 7211 Wilson Road, West Palm Beach. Let's see if I can figure out how to go back. There we go. Okay. So this is the site as it exists today. Oops, let's get forward. Okay, we'll get this figured out. The orange is the existing 1925 house. No renovations or changes are proposed at all to the original 1925 house. And then there's a small carriage house in the back, built in, we believe, 1961. Here is the porch addition. From permit records, we believe this was originally built as a screened-in porch, and was later enclosed. And that's the portion of the that we're requesting to remove. And then Ms. Gannon got a permit back in 2014 to add the pergola over the driveway. So this is the neighborhood and the existing house, and we'll go through in more specifics. So, the portion to be removed. So here is pictures of the porch to be removed. You can see. Let's see if I can get the pointer here. Okay, so here is the porch that has been enclosed. This is the picture of the porch from the back. You can see the porch here with the house in the background. So that's the taller portion here. That's the existing, the original house to remain, and here is the enclosed covered porch we're proposing to remove. Floor plan, again, the orange is the existing 1920 house to remain, and there is the enclosed porch in the back, approximately 330 square feet we're proposing to remove. This is the proposed floor plan. When we first met with Ms. Gannon, one of the considerations was preservation of the gardens, the landscaping, and it's gorgeous. It's important to her. So the decision was made to go with a two-story home to preserve the existing gardens, the existing hardscape, and we felt that was the most appropriate response, and that's the proposed area. And just as a point of reference, there's the existing footprint in green of the existing porch we intend to remove. So the intention was to do as minimal impact to the existing site as necessary. You see the second floor, again, the existing house, and there's the proposed second floor addition. So here's the existing elevations of the home. Here's the new proposed front elevation. There's no changes proposed to the existing historic home front elevation at all. What you do see is the two-story in the background back here, and we'll show you that that's really not visible from the street, hardly at all. So there's the side elevation. You can see the existing home with the proposed porch to be removed. New elevation, again, existing home. There's our new two-story proposed addition. Rear elevation, existing home in the background. There's the enclosed porch, and then we would have that's the existing home from the rear, and that's our new elevation. Again, the other side, same happening, the existing home and our new elevation. So, one of the concerns that has come from the staff report and our discussions with staff was the two-story addition to a one-story home. So we wanted to talk a little bit about sight lines and what you would see. This first line here happens to be the building height line, the 2-to-1 ratio. So we're well below the required height elevation. So the next line you see is if you're standing at the property line, roughly 5.5 feet tall, you're looking at the building. What do you see? You can see the front parapet blocks almost any view that you have of the house. There's the view from the center line of the road. You still can barely see, you can't see the addition. From the opposite side of the street, you might be able to tell there's a parapet there, but you're looking pretty hard to see that. The renderings that we prepared, you can see up here that you can't see the addition, and that's really kind of the intent of that rendering, is that addition is in the rear of the house. We're preserving the existing home with no renovations to the existing at all. So from the street view, you wouldn't notice that addition is there hardly at all. And there's a view of the addition from the back. A couple of quick perspectives where you can see the addition as it relates to the existing home. One of the things we will probably talk more about, and staff will talk about, I think, is there was some comment about whether we wanted to add windows in that wall. I don't think we would be opposed to that if the board felt that was appropriate. We'll explain our rationale why we didn't. One is I don't believe it would ever be visible. By the time we bring a window down, you can see where this head height is. Our window is down here. So if we added a window, it would be very, very difficult for anybody to see. And the thought was the jewel of the house is obviously the existing original home, which we want to leave, we're not proposing to touch at all, and felt that this was to be sort of a blank canvas, and that the jewel of the house would stand out on its own merits without giving any unnecessary detail to that wall. But again, if the board feels that that's appropriate, certainly something we would talk about, not something we would push back on. But that was our rationale for decisions that we made. And again, a couple of the perspectives you can just see of the addition in the original house. Quick findings, zoning use, we're all compatible. We met with the development standards, open space, the setback requirements, and I think by minimizing the footprint and the impact to the site, we've preserved pervious space, and keeping with green design principles, which may not be applicable here, but we felt that was important. We believe it complied with a comprehensive plan and the historic preservation guidelines. I'd like to talk quickly about one of the Secretary of Interior standards. 1, 2, we comply. Standard 3, each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time. Changes that create a false sense of historical development should not be undertaken. So that's a very appropriate standard. So one of the questions that came in the staff report was a concern the proposal may contribute to creating a false sense of history for the original structure. Our interpretation of that standard, when we did a little bit more investigation, reading through some of the additional literature on the Secretary of Interior's website, saw that it said the primary goal is to retain and preserve the property's historic character by avoiding unnecessary replacement of intact materials and alteration of significant features in spatial relationships. So again, that's where we feel that we comply with this standard, that we've left the original house completely intact. The addition is in the rear where we're not affecting any of the street view, and don't feel that the addition in and of itself would lead to a false sense of history. We believe this standard really applies to, as they mention, details, alteration of features. It would be adding inappropriate time details. If we were modifying the existing house and adding details or elements that weren't appropriate to the time, then that would certainly be of a concern. But it was our opinion that we complied with that standard. And the other Secretary of Interior standards we believe we comply with. This request comes with a waiver request. The one standard that we don't believe this complies with is the visual compatibility standards. Additions shall be secondary and subordinate to the main mass of the historic building and shall not overwhelm the original building. So looking at that in two different ways. The first part, secondary and subordinate. A two-story addition to a one-story home would agree is not secondary and subordinate. But the second half of that statement, where it shall not overwhelm the original building, we don't believe that this overwhelms the existing building by putting it in the rear and allowing the existing building to stand out in front. It maintains its historic nature and presence, and did not feel that we overwhelmed the existing historic structure. Just a couple excerpts from staff's report. They said there's no concern with architectural compatibility, so we'll accept that as a compliment. We think we did a good job with the addition. Can be considered an appropriate design and location, and is not anticipated to have a negative effect on the historic integrity of the home. And that, I think, is the key statement when we're considering this waiver request. That there's a lot of things that could have been done that would have been inappropriate, and I think staff touched on that. If we tried to put a second story over the existing home, if this impacted the front elevation, even side elevation. But put in
sorry to interrupt you, but that is the 15-minute timer. If you just just kind of wrap it up, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so that's just the requirements for waiver request is that we won't adversely affect neighborhood, shall not significantly diminish the provision of public facilities, which we do not, shall not create unsafe situation, which doesn't apply, does not result in the grant of special privilege, which we don't think it does, and I think that's covered in the staff report as well. So that concludes our presentation.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Right. Once again, Michelle Hewitt, planner, and this is file number 2025-236 for 236 North Dixie Boulevard, Certificate of Appropriateness and Waiver. Here we have an aerial with the subject property outlined in blue. This property is a 1925 mission-style structure comprised of wood frame construction clad with a textured stucco exterior. It is classified as a contributing structure within the Del Ida Park Historic District and is currently zoned residential office. Some brief history. In 2005, a request for a COA and variance for a trellis and fence in the front yard. to allow a automobile to be parked in the driveway. This project was not initiated and the approval expired. However, in 2014, the same request came back and was approved with the freestanding pergola to exist approximately 2 feet from the west side of the interior property line. The request before the board is a certificate of appropriateness and waiver for the construction of a 1,122 square foot two-story addition to the rear of the existing one-story single-family residence, minor ground level modifications to the residence, removal of the existing rear enclosed patio, which comprises less than 25% of the structure, and hardscaping around the area of the proposed addition. The waiver request is to the secondary and subordinate visual compatibility standard for the proposed two-story addition in the rear of the home. So here we have an image of the front of the structure. This faces North Dixie Boulevard, where you can see the mission style, architectural style, an existing color and stucco pattern. Here we have the rear elevation, the side interior elevation, where you can see that pergola that was approved. Another elevation of the side interior. So here we have the existing survey. The items in blue are the existing structures, and in the back of the building there is a that porch that was enclosed in the lighter blue, and then the brown elements are the existing pergolas on the structure, on the site. So then here's the existing site plan. Again, the blue are the existing structures, and the brown are the existing trellises / pergolas. And here's the proposed site plan with the enclosed porch that is to be removed. Again, it comprises less than 25% of the structure for the two-story addition highlighted in red. And then that wood pergola in the back is also to be removed, along with some of the hardscaping to accommodate the addition. This is the proposed streetscape. Outlined in red is the subject property with the two-story addition, along with the other structures along the street. So here we have the existing front elevation on the top, highlighted in blue, and then in the bottom is the proposed front elevation with that two-story addition in the back. There are no proposed modifications to any of the materials and colors, window patterns on the existing structure with this proposed modification. Here we have at the top the existing rear elevation, and at the bottom is the proposed rear elevation, highlighted in red. This is proposed to have that enclosed porch removed for the two-story addition. Here is the side elevation. Again, blue is existing and red is the proposed two-story. And then from the other side. So here we have a staff report excerpt from the Secretary of the Interior Standards. As previously mentioned, the proposal includes removal of the existing closed porch, paver walkway, and wooden pergola for a new two-story addition to the rear of the existing one-story structure. Again, the proposal, there's no proposed modifications to the original existing residence as a result of the addition. The mission style structures typically contain a stucco exterior, flat roof with a parapet, a concrete foundation, and are typically 1 to 2 stories. The proposal fits within those confines. Window types are commonly casement or single hung, and mission style structures in general, compared to the similar Mediterranean revival, typically lacks elaborate surface ornamentation. And this is a screenshot from the Delaware Beach Historic Preservation Design Guidelines, where those items I just discussed are shown on the screen, where you can see some of those elements that are typically common, such as the height of the structure, exterior surface treatment, and the types of windows. Here is a staff report excerpt from the Visual Compatibility Standards. The mission style structure, while it is currently 1 story, there are concerns regarding the addition of a 2-story, as it is a 1-story. However, it is not uncommon for this particular style to be constructed as a 2-story and can be found within other Delray Beach historic districts. As this is a 2-story, the proposal itself cannot be considered secondary and subordinate, thus a waiver was submitted for the request. Architecturally, the 2nd story is expected to allow the original building footprint to maintain a similar scale to its existing size. Further, the addition is proposed to the rear of the structure and not on top of the 1-story building. This is best practice in that the addition is not anticipated to affect the historic integrity of the original mission style structure. It is also noted that the design and placement of the addition incorporates a shorter roof line and allows for the basic form of the 1-story structure to remain intact should the addition ever be removed in the future, reducing concerns relating to the secondary and subordinate visual compatibility standards. Here are the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. Again, the highlighted elements are what were used to analyze the request. And then here as well for the visual compatibility standards. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any public comment?
Again, Roger Cope, Cope Architects Inc., 701 Southeast 1st Street in the National Marina Historic District. I love this project. I've admired this house for many, many years. It's a cute little, beautiful little jewel on that part of Dixie Boulevard. I think you should support it. I think it's the addition to the back is clearly subordinate in every way. The height of it is no issue. It's positioned properly. It doesn't disturb the original home at all. It's a beautiful 1925 structure, I believe. And I think it enhances the neighborhood, it enhances the Delita Historic District, it enhances the city. It's probably going to end up being exactly what a historic property owner should do to their home to improve it. And I would hope you would support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any rebuttal by the applicant of staff?
No, sir.
Okay. And the staff rebuttal of the applicant?
Staff.
So we're prepared to bring it to the board. Peter, would you like to lead off?
Sure. Hi, Ann. How are you? Good. How are you? Good. I didn't have any ex parte communication, but I live in the neighborhood, and I see this house several times a week. I go by it, sometimes on my bicycle. But it's a cute house, and I think this is a nice project to bring forward, and it's going to set a good example for what people can do with some of these cottages that are challenging because the space is limited. You don't have proper laundry rooms or closets or things that a modern house might have. So this really brings it into the future. My concern is that the addition is a little too matchy-matchy, but I know that's by design, and Roger loves it, so that's good. But we're not here to design from the dais, and I think it's going to be a nice project. I fully support it. So thank you.
I think it's well done. I have no problem with the waiver at all. The only issue that I can see is I understand that when you're standing close to it, you won't really see the 2nd story too much. But when you are standing farther away, you will see that blank facade of a wall. And on the elevation, it's pretty prevalent that it is a big blank wall. So you mentioned windows. Maybe it was mentioned in another meeting. The staff didn't mention the windows at all. Did you talk about that with the applicant earlier?
What about the windows?
Well, he mentioned something about windows, that they would be open to it if we mentioned it.
It's in. Sorry, sir. The board is. It's fine, but he's asking staff. Sorry. It is in the staff report that we had concern with that blank wall on that elevation. If you go to the north or south or the east or west, it's hard to know because it's a diagonal road. You can see it. Go to the other one, Michelle. the window patterns are just slightly different on these. Where the new windows are a little bit bigger, it's showing that differentiation. So I think that was partially their concern, is if you take one of those bigger windows on that pattern and you put it on the front elevation, that it may not work. But that's up to the board.
Yeah, it's overall it's not a huge issue because it is the angle of the visual angle to see it is not that prevalent. So I would like to hear what the other board members have to say about that. But that's the only thing that came to mind. In the elevation where it says the proposed front west elevation, it does look like a pretty massive blank facade, which doesn't look great on elevation. So that would be my one area of concern.
John?
Yeah, so I had a couple of thoughts. Overall, I'm in favor of it. The question, and I don't honestly mind the blank wall there. I think it helps it kind of fade into the background, and you're really never going to notice it. It doesn't draw your eye up there. I did have a kind of a comment about what Peter had said about it does match. Is there any differentiating factors in terms of offsets or maybe the pattern of the stucco or anything like that that would differentiate the new versus the old?
Sure. So here's the rear elevation. What we didn't highlight blue is you can see the side of the
so
original,
slate offset on the west side there.
on
right?
both actually.
Both.
We're
Okay.
missing the blue box on the right side, but it does. So it doesn't line up directly with the original. Plus the window pattern is slightly different. So Michelle, if you go to the side elevation, the original has 4/1 style windows, and they're a little bit smaller. So that gives the trained eye the cue that something's different here. And the difference is that this is a more modern interpretation of the existing. So we felt that there were enough slight nuances that we weren't seeing the matchy, I think is...
Well, the parapet, for example, is matched to a T.
Yeah.
So maybe that's good. I'm just throwing it out there.
And if it's something that, should the board feel would be more appropriate to see maybe a larger run on the parapet or some type of differentiation, that's something you could entertain. There's also the other side, Michelle, if you flip over. You can see here where there's 3 windows in a row here, use of 3 windows, where that's not typical on the sides. So there were some nuanced differences, but there won't be a differentiation in stucco pattern, other than the craftsman who does it may not match it exactly. So inadvertently, you might see a difference, but I think it's their intent. Michelle, if you could go to a photograph, this is a very specific stucco pattern, and there are only so many people who execute this well. So we'll probably see a slight difference in the stucco pattern as well.
And if it's offset on both sides, then that satisfies me there well enough. I think overall it's going to, like Pete said as well, bring this home, give it some amenities that it doesn't currently have, and it would prevent anybody from potentially moving in there and deciding to take the whole thing down, because it is more livable. And it does provide some amenities that it doesn't have now, and it would hopefully secure its future, for the foreseeable future. Anyway, I'm in favor of it.
I had similar concerns about the finishes, how they match each other, and I don't have a problem with the massing myself. I'm not see this as so disturbing, and instead of trying to tie the two together, create a fake sort of change in the parapet to do that, I think it's well enough done right now. However, I was also regarding the windows potentially added to the back. I don't see that will be helpful, and I also apparently there's no really good way to access that the roof, if I'm not mistaken, if that was ever an intention, you know. The only concern I have a little bit is that I assume that the addition is CMU, right, not wood, and the transition between the two, the connection between the two, would that act like a expansion joint or something like that? And how? Sorry, I'm talking to the architect.
Mr. White, could you please come to the microphone?
You are correct. The new addition would be concrete block, and the intention would be to create this completely structurally independent from the original home. And as an element that we may see is probably a construction joint on this side elevation here, where the new hits the existing, which again kind of give that element to something has changed, because we would likely get some differential movement. So we would want a construction joint on that elevation where the new hits the existing.
And you can
you're not
see
considering the north for that same reason. The north elevation.
Yeah, it's, what is it, 4 inches on the north, or the top
Right,
of the
I can
screen,
see
which
that.
is
Correct.
really like the east, I think.
Yeah.
It's a 4-inch offset, where on the other side it's an expansion joint.
Correct.
Correct.
And that's okay. I mean, I don't have a problem. I just went into this little different detail there. Okay.
Any more?
Good.
That's it? Okay. Carol?
Good.
Yes, I've got a question for Anne. I was wondering, are you going to be able to save your gumbo limbo that's in the back? It looked like there was a nice tree.
Yes,
In the
we are
backyard.
saving. We're not cutting that. We're not cutting any trees down. We may trim them down. There's one branch that
Right.
we're going to have to trim. I've already checked with an arborist.
Okay, that's great. I think, going up that's all the question I had for you, but I think that going up 2 stories is a wise idea. You preserve your yard, and you have a place to enjoy the outdoors. I was wondering about the fenestration of the windows at the back of the house. The original house is pretty centered. All the windows are centered on all the spaces, and then when you get to the proposed elevation of the rear, that big blank space just seems amiss to me. It seems amiss to me in the architecture, and I don't know if that is part of the visual compatibility or if I'm overstepping my the boundaries here, but I just felt
Being that it's a non-primary elevation and there are windows on that elevation, staff didn't have a comment about it, but you can see on the floor plan here what's occurring. I mean, there could be a window in the hallway, potentially, but we fundamentally didn't have a problem with that.
So it provides some privacy when you're leaving the bathroom.
Yes.
And I can see the alignment in the bedroom of the windows with the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
well, that's my biggest criticism. I mean, that bugs me to all in to see that big blank space there and not have something lined up like the original elevation.
If I may ease yourself, if you look at the front elevation, is completely asymmetrical in that sense, but it's balanced.
It's balanced.
There are different size windows on both sides. The door is not, per se in the center.
Mm-hmm.
So the house has some sort of built-in imperfections, and so I think you can allow for a more complex composition. It doesn't have to be so
Yeah,
That's fine, Michelle.
so strict.
Yeah, don't. I mean,
No,
I-
I'm just
yeah.
saying because I don't have personally a problem with it. I find it balanced.
that's why I'm glad the tree's there. Thanks. Thank you. That's all.
Ezra?
I support the project. I actually think the addition of a window in the front would be a detriment. I like having that canvas there, and it helps to make the house, the original structure, stand out significantly. So I'm glad that you did put that window in there. But I agree with it, with what my fellow board members said.
Okay. I'd like to make a couple comments. During the presentation, there was mention of both hardscape and permeable surface for the driveway, but I didn't see that as part of the project. Is that something that we are approving or not approving?
There are no changes to the driveway. In the front, in the rear, we have to reconfigure some of the walkways because of the new addition. And around the side of the house, we'll add some stepping stones just to get around to that mechanical area and get around to the side of the house. That's the limits of the hardscape revision.
While you're up there, one of my other questions was the balcony. Is that a working balcony?
Yes, those are our doors. So it is a working balcony, and I believe Miss Gannon has a historic railing that she wants to add, possibly. Oh, okay. We'd looked at trying to salvage an old railing, but
okay. Your presentation on the sightlines really convinced me that you really have to go across the street to even see it. But from the sidewalk, an average height person would not see it, I think you said.
Correct.
Okay. And therefore, I'd like to ask the question, do we really need a waiver? And I think this is partly to staff and partly to the applicant, because it is almost by definition secondary and subordinate and does not contravene that requirement.
It's a great question, a great comment. So it's been our practice with other projects in a similar capacity that the waiver is sought because the waiver isn't about being visible from the front of the property or from the road. The waiver is the addition secondary and subordinate to the main massing of the house? The house is a one-story. A two-story addition is inherently not secondary and subordinate. So that's the point of the waiver. With that said, of all of the applications we've seen in the 8 years I've been back here at the city, this one is one that makes me the happiest because the addition is not being placed on top of the existing one-story structure. If it had, then it would have checked some other boxes of problems, like could the addition be removed in the future without having an effect on the existing structure? So being that it's on top of its own brand new one story, it's one on the other, it could easily be removed. We advise when we have pre-apps with the applicant to do a real world perspective, which is what you see here on screen from the front, if you look at the left side, where it's not taken, the perspective isn't taken from the top of the camera that's on top of the Google car,
right.
That we're actually doing it from somebody who's 5 foot or 6 foot tall. So that they've done a great perspective, but also if you notice on the drawing or the rendering on the left, the perspective is taken from the front right side of the house where the parapet's a little bit higher on the existing house.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we were standing on the left side and the tree weren't there, we might see a little bit more of the addition. But it's in the back. It's not distracting from that original style and massing of the original structure. So that's the point of the waiver.
Okay, so you're saying that by definition of what secondary and subordinate is,
Yes.
we need a waiver. Okay.
It shouldn't overwhelm and affect that massing. So
Okay,
we
I
fundamentally...
have no more comments. Shall we? Ms. Gannon?
Thank you. There is an intention to replace the driveway. It should be included in this. The driveway is not going to be concrete anymore.
That can go straight to permit when
can?
it does come in.
Okay.
So you could go through, get this set certified, get working, get a permit in hand, and come back later once you have your decision on the material and revise the permit, and it's a simple modification to the plan.
So that doesn't have to come back to us.
No.
That's all. Okay.
No, we
great.
can handle that administratively.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Who would like to make a motion? Other than John, who would do such a great job. Ezra, are you? No, you're still a novice, a newbie. Okay.
I'll do it. I mean, who's going to do it?
If you wanted to, it would be the second one would be no conditions, number B, and C would be if you were adding conditions.
Okay, I would be honored to give the motion. Please let the minutes note. I move that we approve certificate of appropriateness and waiver 2024-236 for the property located at 236 North Dixie Boulevard, Delida Park Historic District, by finding that the request and approval thereof is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the criteria set forth in the land development regulations.
Well done by a rookie.
Second.
Okay. Call the roll.
Cruz Cabezas,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Peter Dwyer,
Yes.
Carol Perez,
Yes.
Vlad Dumitrescu,
Yes.
Desiree Craig,
Yes.
Jim Chard.
Yes. Congratulations. Great job.
I said perfect.
So I think we now have a presentation or a discussion on the cemetery.
All right. Okay. Michelle Hoyland, Principal Planner for the record. So tonight I'm going to give you a summary breakdown of where we've been and what we've completed with the Historic Resource Survey of the City Cemetery. The property is known as the Delray Beach Memorial Gardens, and I'm just going to move forward to a aerial here. It is located east of I-95, south of Atlantic Avenue, north of 10th Street, along the west side of 8th Avenue. The cemetery contains about 29 acres. So in May of 2022, staff requested the City Commission's approval to submit an application for a grant, which is our process. We need Commission approval to submit any applications. To request that grant from the State of Florida Small Matching Program. That's a $50,000 grant. And the City Commission approved us moving forward with the application. Those are non-matching requirement grants because we're a certified local government. It's free money. So we were ranked very high in the ranking and were awarded $50,000. It was the first time that one of our grant applications for the Division of Historical Resources, the Small Matching Program, was funded in part by the National Park Service federal government grant. That was a testament to the merits of the project, but also the application submittal. So $18,250 was funded by federal dollars to study this. $31,750 of that 50 was funded from the Florida legislature. So we ranked 3 on the federal. They only fund 3 projects a year, so we were number 3. And we ranked 6 on the state. And this was, I think, out of 54 projects. So I'm tooting my own horn, but also staff. Michelle Hewitt and Katharina Paliwoda and I put this application together in a previous year. We were funded the money, but due to COVID, we weren't able to secure a consultant. So we had to withdraw the application. And we weren't ranked as high, but the second time around, we learned a thing or two. So we all worked hard to make our application pretty steel tight. The city comprehensive plan has a policy that identifies, ensuring that we study the cemetery, and we look at it for potential designation. This is policy HPE 1.5.6. So after being awarded the grant, we engaged a consultant through competitive bidding process. LG2 Environmental Solutions, ONEDA, is who we brought in, and they got to work pretty quickly. They had a pretty tight time frame to get this work done. The entire cemetery of almost 30 acres, the northeast quadrant, as you can see in red here, is what contains the historic portion, and that's about 5 acres. This is a zoomed in picture here that you can see of it. The red is the area that's the historic section, and the blue is the area that the consultant studied.
Could you show that again? I'm sorry.
Sure.
But
There we go. And I have more
Okay.
images as we go too, and we can come back and forth if you have questions. So what is a historic resource survey? Cultural resource assessment is another term that we utilize for this study. Basically, this is where we study the potential for historic designation. Is there enough context at a property, such as Veterans Park? You know, the Preservation Trust is putting together a historic designation report. It's very similar. There has to be a purpose and a methodology. The history of the city, the cemetery in this case, was included in this report. List of surveyed resources. In this case, it was elements of the cemetery itself and the burials that are there. And then the report includes a summary and a recommendation. You know, is there context for designation? Maps, photographs, and so on. So the report is on the city website. This is the left image is the cover of that report. And the right image where you see all of these dots is a screenshot of the GIS map that was included as part of this project. So it's not just a report that you have in hand. There's an interactive tool, and I'll explain that a little bit later on in the presentation. So in this case, this report included a summary of the laws and regulations, and there are Florida statutes all the way down to city regulations that cover how cemeteries are treated. The field methods, which i.e. methodology, the history of the cemetery, the assessment report and management plan, along with recommendations. So the methodology was the consultant mobilized, went into the field. They went burial by burial. They photographed every single headstone. They had flags placed. I think you might remember in a previous meeting where I was announcing, don't take the flags out. They placed flags, which were GPS markers. So each burial is tied to a GPS coordinate that ties into this map. And then what they were looking at is what's the cutoff date. So it's 50 years or older is what was being assessed. So 1974, as this was done in 2024, to see what is the historic integrity from that point prior. The cemetery was gifted to the Ladies Improvement Association in 1902 by Frederick Dewey, who was with Flagler's Model Land Company, or the Florida East Coast Railway, and was pretty typical of that time frame for Flagler to donate property for churches and schools, cemeteries, hospitals. The 5 acres was added to with an additional 2.5 acres of land that was purchased soon after. This was known as Pine Ridge Cemetery originally. Today we know it as Delray Beach Memorial Gardens Municipal Cemetery. It's kind of a mouthful there. So there was drainage issues on the property back then. The Ladies Improvement Association agreed to deed 2 additional acres, or 2 of those acres, to the black community with the quid pro quo that they had to clear the land. So in the cemetery, part of the study is there a section that was a segregated portion? And there is, and is part of the identification in this report. Previously, when prior to 1902, there weren't many people living here. We were probably talking a few handfuls almost at that time, maybe a little more. People were burying their loved ones at what was known as Bay Ridge Cemetery. And you can see on the right here the town of Linton. This is the original plat map from the late 1800s. Bay Ridge Cemetery is noted on that plat map. It's in the upper right-hand corner of this map here. So this is beachfront. Right in this area right here is Bay Ridge. That's present day Seaspray Avenue, Lang Street area. It was difficult to transfer your loved ones in coffins across the intercoastal. There were no bridges yet, so they were done by a barge with a rope that you would pull to get the barge across. I have seen pictures in the past of this, and I can't seem to find them. The Historical Society and I've looked. But it was inhospitable place to really have a cemetery for people to go and pay respects to their loved ones. There were even reported disturbing issues by bears, black bears in the area. So this is a plaque that's out at the Pine Ridge Cemetery. So Bay Ridge was discontinued for use, and I have seen an article that indicates that people were exhumed and moved. We believe they were moved here, but that history isn't written in this document because it's not, it's word of mouth history I've not been able to document. So plots were sold at Pine Ridge, which is our current cemetery we're talking about. Single plots were sold for $1, and family plots were sold for $5. The earliest known burial in the cemetery is Charlie Myers, who was a local 12-year-old boy, and he died in 1903. We're still working. There's additional research that I think should happen in discussing this with the consultant. We'd like to find more out about him and include his story in the report or future version of the report. In 1914, ownership was transferred to the city. There was flooding that occurred over the years. There was, the consultant had, and I'm saying this on record, and I'll say it again at commission when I present to them on the 11th of February. There was a person that came up while the consultant was on site and indicated, and it says here, according to an anonymous local who visited the cemetery during this survey, a photograph was taken after one or both of the 1947 storms and published in a newspaper showing the cemetery underwater and numerous caskets floating. So up in the upper hard right corner here, you can see, and if you ever drive by this, how very close some of these caskets are, right to the edge of the road. We believe those are the casket tops, not the actual burial itself. Only way to confirm that would be ground penetrating LIDAR, radar, which would have to happen in a future effort if we wanted to go the distance of maybe resetting these. So that was, I think, a really important piece. This is why they're all shifted. You can see, looking at it on aerial, there's not the orderly burial that you see in the bottom, where they're all shifted to the right. That's a little closer in there. So after many years, in 1996, after the cemetery was struggling, it wasn't being maintained in its best condition, the City Parks and Rec Department completed a successful expansion. The cemetery got much larger by adding 10 more acres and a new entrance on 10th Street. This is a view from the entrance off of 8th, which I think is just so picturesque when you're out there and seeing this view. It's almost like something you would see out in the countryside somewhere. So the report includes many graves. 1,202 is what the total of historic grave sites surveyed. That you can see here, with the large bulk of burials occurring in the 1960 era. There are several significant persons indicated in the report. Not everybody is in the report, not all families. I think more research could be done to highlight that, and I'll explain more when we talk about signage. But Fagin Henry is buried here. I probably should have turned the contrast down on the picture so you could see his birth date and death date here. But he and Jane Monroe, who later became his wife, were the first black pioneers to Delray Beach, coming here in 1894. That was the same year that William Linton came down. He was a Michigan postmaster, and he purchased 160 acres from George Gleason for development in Delray Beach. So this is a very important person. This is not in the report. This is something that we have researched and have noted. Again, the report covers some, not all. Catherine Strong is buried there, and you'll know Catherine Strong. You can see her on the wall here. She was Delray Beach's first woman mayor. Her family, the Link family, is also buried there. Why are they important, Pete?
Link worked for that famous architect,
Addison Meisner.
Yeah.
And was involved with development of Delida Park Historic
And
District.
his house is right on the corner of my street.
Yep.
Yeah, beautiful.
So they have long-term ties to Delray Beach. So the report goes through different recommendations. Maintenance is one of the heavily covered items in the report. Parks and Rec has taken the report and digested it, and they don't. The damage we think that has occurred to headstones and burial caps over the years is old. Parks and Rec is, we've talked with them. They're very sensitive into how they mow and trim the properties or trim the burials and the headstones. But there's recommendations in there on how some of those headstones and caps can be repaired. What kind of consultant you would hire to do that. There's recommendations for signage, and we think signage is probably going to be one of our most important pieces of this project moving forward, and with whatever we decide to do with this property. Security, making sure holes in fences are patched up. We've got a beautiful fence that was installed, a black aluminum rail with brick posts every so often out there. Parks and Rec worked on that as well. I think through a grant maybe with community improvement years ago. And then, of course, historic designation. So the report, this is a screenshot of the website. So if you wanted to go and review the report or share it with a friend, we did attach it here so that anyone can go and look at it. And then also what you don't see, it's kind of hard to see, is right below maps is the historic GIS map that you can go and click on. We're fine-tuning and tweaking this map right now to make sure all the pictures are loading properly. So when you click on a burial, the photograph of that burial or photographs comes up. This is super important for our folks who are interested in doing genealogical and ancestral research. And here, again, is just a snippet from the report about the GIS map and the photographs that are available on the property. Clicking on the GIS map, this is what it would look like. So we're working for when we do the city commission presentation. I kind of want to do like a screen record so it can show a live clicking around so I could show what that looks like. But all of these points that you see, these little white pins, you can click on and it will give you information. So on this one, I've clicked on Robinson. The photograph isn't loading right now, so we're working on that. But you can scroll down and see, what does the headstone say? What was the birthday? What was the death date? So it's just a really great resource of information.
Do the photos include pictures of the people? Or the
No.
family?
No. The period of significance for the cemetery is 1902 to 1974. Obviously, we're 1 year ahead now, so 75 would trigger, and we've talked about this with the consultant that every year you can age in the older burials. It's recommended by the consultant for listing on both the national and local registers of historic places. This is a city-owned property, and we will hear what the board and the city commission has to say about potentially designating. It's also, I think, important to note that cemeteries are much less likely to be destroyed through any kind of threats of redevelopment. So it's kind of an easy up, right, to designate. But But why else would that be important? What are the benefits? And that brings us back to the benefits of preservation. I think the signage program would be so important here, where we would have field trips. You know, kids could come, have proper storytelling through a story mapping series of signage on the property. Heritage tourism, people are oftentimes traveling to go find out about their family, and part of that might be visiting a cemetery to look at a headstone of a long lost relative. So there's many benefits of preservation. Aesthetically, it would also open us up to potentially having grants to explore. So we could ask for additional funding in future grant cycles to maintain or repair where repairs might need to happen to headstones, or to fund a signage program. These are just a few that are available. There right now, African American historic burials or cemetery grants are at the top of the list for the federal government and the state. There are certain parameters I'm not sure that we would qualify for, but we could certainly explore. We would definitely qualify for small matching grants, which is how we paid for this study in the first place, to do educational efforts through signage. So there's, I think, lots of opportunities to look for funding so that we can supplement the city's budget for this maintenance of this property. If directed to proceed with designation, which, should this come, I will present on February 11th to the commission. Also, you all, as you can see in the code, who can instigate historic designation. The board can make a recommendation for it. The city commission would ultimately have to make that final decision. But what would happen is it would come back to you as a formal proposal, staff report and everything. This technically is an LDR amendment because our local register of historic places is stored in the LDR. So it would come to you, historic board, you would make a recommendation that would go on to the planning and zoning board. Through the reading of the ordinance adoption procedure, there would be 2 hearings at the city commission for potential designation. So this is my good news note. We worked very hard on this project. We were very happy with the consultant, and hope that there might be future phases of this project moving forward. So thank you so much for giving me the space to talk a little bit about a good news item. Thanks.
Good job.
Yeah, great work.
Yeah, I think it's great. Can't wait to play around on the online.
Yeah, I can't wait for the pictures all to get embedded. That's coming very soon.
All right, cool. Now, would you prefer we make a recommendation tonight? Or we are going to meet actually before the 11th. So, I mean,
It's up to you.
I'd be happy to make a motion.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I'd like to move that this board recommends a historic designation for the Delray Memorial Gardens Cemetery. Please correct me if I'm wrong on that title. For the historic section of the cemetery that has been studied.
Okay.
Could I add to that, and the continuing efforts that are indicated here in terms of increasing the information and so forth?
Yes, so amended.
So I second that.
Any discussion?
No, except for, I do have a question. Is this presentation available?
Yes, I can send you this.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's the same one that was in our agenda, is it not?
No, you don't get the presentation in advance, but I can totally send you this.
So we just got the study.
You
not the
did,
presentation.
yes.
Let's do a vote, and then if there's any further questions, we can address.
Sure.
Chris
Very
Capezas,
nice. Very
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Peter Dwyer,
Yes.
Carol Perez,
Yes.
Vlad Dumitrescu,
Yes.
Azrae Craig,
Yes.
Jim Chard.
Yes.
Cool.
I did have one more question before Kelly.
Sure.
I recall about 10 years or so ago, Parks and Rec was doing a study of the cemetery. It was probably more involved with capacity and so forth than historic, but I'm just wondering if that consultant study was taken a look at as part of this study.
It's quite possible. The consultant worked with Parks and Rec to see what records they had available. We provided them research on the city's city commission minutes going back to, I think, the dawn of time is online. So they read through hundreds of different documents. I'm sure that they saw that. The capacity. They also sat down and talked with Parks and Rec. So I don't know the results of that myself. I do know that there's been discussion of mausoleum occurring out at the property because we're about at capacity with in-ground burials.
Any other comments on that?
I'm assuming that you're sharing this experience with the other municipalities. Like Boynton has similar unfound cemeteries.
We haven't reached out to them directly to do so, but we do have a CLG network, a certified local government network. I don't know that Boynton has a dedicated historic preservation staff member right now, but we do talk about our success stories when we get together. Usually it's quarterly. So this one would potentially be something that other cities in our area would look at for how to. You know, when we're submitting grants, we ask the state of Florida, can you send us examples of our partners who've done something similar so we can make sure we cover all bases like they might have. So I expect that they might see it, but I haven't reached out directly.
Excellent work, really.
It's a team effort. Our team, Michelle and Katharina and I, these are the kinds of projects I think we enjoy. While this one was super fast-paced, just because of different challenges we faced internally, this is the kind of work that's more rewarding on a daily basis. We don't get to do this that often, so.
Do you go after grants often, or is this a rare thing?
So we have gone after, I think it was 4 or 5 cycles of grants. Since I've been here, have received $250,000 in funding. I did have to withdraw one of those, which was the grant for this in a year prior, so we didn't complete it. The other grants that we've completed are all 5 historic districts, a resurvey project, which Mr. Heisenbottle's team did out of Miami. We did a 2-phase project. The first phase was scanning of all historic preservation records that we have, not COA, but everything under the sun that we've got in our files. I think there were 38,000 records created through that scanning project. That scanning project led to a second project, which took all of those records and put them into a GIS database. So you can click on, when you go to the website and you see this GIS map that I pointed out, right below that is the city's historic GIS, and you can click around on that. I don't have it in the shot, but it's right below this. So all of the records I had scanned in the previous, if you want to go look at, say, Ann Gannon's house, and see her Florida Master Site File form, you can click on her property and see the historic records that were in association with hers. So it was kind of a 2-part. These 2 cemetery grants, I've submitted several. I have to ask the commission for approval to do it because it does take staff offline. When we're doing COAs, that's not always super productive. So we've got others that we're planning for the future. The hard thing with these grants is you submit by usually a June 1st deadline. So I've got a June 1st deadline coming up. I have to be before the city commission asking for approval to submit that grant well in advance. Like right now, I'd have to be going and asking them permission. Then we have to put the application together, which takes time, and submit. and we don't get interviewed for that until the fall. And the funding, should we get funded, doesn't come available until the following July. So it's like you're planning almost 2 years in advance when you do these grants. So we have a list of, pet projects we'd love to see get done. But I also need my director to say yes, go forward with this, because she's helping to manage our time. So it's a commitment. It's definitely a commitment, but we've gotten pretty good at the application submittals. So
Great.
long answer, I know.
Yeah,
but
no, that was great. Good to know.
yeah.
Quick question. Did you come across anything that had to do with the sailors from the Inchalva?
So I've looked at this so many times in the past, not as part of this effort. I'm curious to know, because the story is that they were buried on the ridge.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, were they buried where Bay Ridge Cemetery was, and is that why it's noted as Bay Ridge Cemetery? I have researched this myself several times in the 8 years I've been here. I would really love if we could figure out where they were, but we've not been able to. It's kind of like if you read the historic marker at the south end of the beach, it tells you it's like kind of on high, it's above at the top of the ridge. I haven't.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, because that was 1903, so that was right about when this was formed.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. There is an article that I came across and I have saved of a resident who lived up in that Sea Spray Lang Street area, who recalls the bodies being exhumed and not bodies, I should say, the burials being removed and moved. But other than that article, I've not been able to document it. I've spent kind of a nerd this way where I'll sit and just look through the old city minutes from the city commission. I don't know if any of you have ever done it. It's so interesting.
Fascinating. Yeah.
I've not been able to find it.
Okay.
When you say you've scanned all those documents, were those scanned as digital or as images?
Are you
Or
talking
both?
about the city commission minutes?
No, what you said 10 minutes ago in terms of all of the scanning of the historic documents.
They were paper documents that we had the consultant come in, pick up all of the files from file cabinets and take them. They were in Tampa, took them to their office, and they digitally scanned them. When a document is scanned, say this page is being scanned, whatever, there's something called metadata tagging that has to happen, which is going to create fields, we call them tables, for the yellow cards I show you all the time. I had all of those scanned and I created fields for those. So address, owner name, the year the property was built. So there were certain fields that triggered on the image that was scanned, so that now you can enter a search term in and get the yellow card to come up.
So it is an image as opposed to a digital file, and in and of itself it's not searchable, but the metadata is.
That's pretty techy of you to say all of that.
Well,
and I don't think it's exactly how I would explain it, but I'll say yes.
The scan might have picked up the text,
You can
right?
extract.
The scan,
well, you'd have to convert it though.
the scan fully picks up the text. In fact, some of the documents that we were having scanned,
You'd have to OC.
like the building permit cover page is usually just a file folder cover. And why it's important is up in the corner, it tells you who the architect was. And this is how we pull Sam Ogren's. Those came pixelated. So the scanning company redid them. You'll still see some of those pixelated versions in the files when you look. We've got new ones to add in. But it is actually the text that's scanned on the page.
But it's not OCR'd, so you can't
It
really
is.
search on it.
It is OCR'd.
It is.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah. And while that was a $50,000 grant, I believe we were able to get that one done for $38,000. So.
So, any more comments from staff? Any comments from the board?
Crazy question.
Yeah.
I walk in the beach every morning, right? And I happened to be involved years ago with the House of Refuge in in Stewart,
Okay.
you know, and I actually have I built a model of it.
Oh, wow.
And would that be amazing if we can rebuild the one here?
So the building or structure that's right at the beach is modeled after the House of Refuge. So that that pavilion, thank you, John.
Yeah.
That is modeled after the frame and
Right.
size and shape of the House of Refuge.
Wait, the building that's up near Boston's, that structure?
It's right at the
Pavilion, right?
Yes.
across from Luna
I
Rosa.
wondered what the history was.
never knew that.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah, that was really modeled after the House of
I mean,
Refuge.
in terms of footprint, but
Yeah, and frame, not
And
obviously the
typical.
sides and stuff. And
Yeah,
it
same.
had a thatch roof where this has a metal roof.
it's very interesting.
Does anyone know what the official first name of Delray Beach was that the postmaster gave Delray?
Zion.
Zion,
It was Zion. Yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
Zion, then Logan, then Delray.
yeah. And then
Then Delray Beach.
He and his wife, the postmaster, needed to have an official name so that they could get mail delivered. So Zion is what they chose.
I have one question before we close. At the last meeting, we asked a couple of questions of Amy. Excuse me. She said she'd get back to us on those. And
Do you
I
remember what they were?
Well, I remember part of it, but not all of it.
I know I listened to it, but I don't remember what you asked.
It was at the end of
Yeah.
the meeting, and I think that it's definitely on video.
Yeah, I watched it back then, but I've already forgotten.
Yeah.
Our next meeting is in 2 weeks, February 5th, I think it is. So I'll make sure I go back and
Please.
double check
Thank
what
you.
you were asking about to have a report for you.
I don't seem to have a gavel up here, but
Well, I do have one comment. I want to apologize for being tardy. I pride myself on being on time and being prepared. I had this meeting on my schedule, but I've received no communications of the meeting. I've received no agenda.
You didn't get my agenda a week
I
ago?
got nothing. I
Okay.
checked my spam
Okay.
at the urging of a friend. There's nothing there. The only email I've ever received was Roger Cope's
Okay.
notice today.
So could you, just as a reminder, when you get home, send me an email from your actual city address that you have access to?
I actually sent an email to all of the members here saying, do we have a meeting tonight? I didn't hear back from anybody,
Okay.
but I did do that from my Delray Beach address.
but you from your Delray Beach address.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
Did you see that? I didn't see that.
I saw it when
I
I was
got
sitting
it.
in the room over
Yeah.
there.
356, you sent it.
Yeah.
I'll double check in my system that I have the right address. It's possible that I have the period wrong somewhere or a dash
Okay,
wrong.
I'd appreciate it because I felt unprepared and I
Yeah.
don't want to be unprepared.
Well, I'm glad that you made it. You made it before we started, so
Yeah.
you're
If
all
it
good.
helps, he was actually just joking about
Yeah.
waiting for you to start.
No,
We were waiting on like the microphones
No,
and
I
getting
understand,
situated
but
and everything.
I do pride myself on being early, and I do like walking in.
My wife was hungry.
You were right on time.
Right.
Ezra, you did a great job on reading the motion. And
Oh, thank you.
just so you don't think we're picking on you, you should have seen what we did to Mr. Cavazos here.
Oh, yeah.
He had about 5 or 6 conditions in addition to just reading.
That's right.
Well,
Barely.
I hope that will always be a good story to talk about that won't be related to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Do you ever have any questions or anything, you're welcome to reach out to
Okay.
our office and give me a call.
That would be great. I just,
Yeah.
it just, like I said, it kind of snuck up on me, and